I'm fanatical about culture. I think you're either building the business or diluting the business every single day that you show up.
All right, well, thank you. So excited to be here. And by the way, this is an operator meeting, so we're on stage with the operators. I tell you, I'm really excited about this topic. Is casual dining hot, or is it just hot in spots? And can it thrive versus just surviving? I happen to be an advocate for casual dining and full service, and I do think the consumers are rediscovering what it means to have full service. Now, it doesn't take away from our partners at fast casual. There's a place for everything. Our industry is, and I'm going to say savory's at the tip of the spear of what's creating this idea of renaissance in our industry. I've been doing this for 45 years. Like all of you, I love this business, as our guests here on the stage do. But I tell you, there's space for everybody. We are shifting a big shift towards what the consumer wants. It's changing. Trends are changing. Through all your concepts, meeting a lot of you today, I love the segmentation, the micro fit through the market, but meeting consumers' needs. Remember, people come out to eat because it's worth it. They can deliver it, they can receive it, or they go out, and that's the dichotomy we're in. And so casual dining, full service, this renaissance, and I can tell you, it's pretty exciting to see how everybody's responding. So we've got three great panelists, very diverse backgrounds, but also very unique concepts, all different plays. But I think their experience, not just with their concept, through their journey and where they are, I think I'm really excited. I'm going to really challenge them to give insights and learning to share with this group. Don't be afraid, leave it on the table. By the way, good things are good about it, and things that you think, hey, you wish you'd have learned, or you wish you were at a savory concert 10 years ago to have gleaned good information. So the last thing I'd say before I go, because casual dining, as you know, it's booming in certain spaces. But today in the room, I want to point out one founder in the room that I was just pleased as heck. Taylor invited him. I happened to be on the flight. But Larry Levine, would you stand up? Larry, are you here? Where is Larry? Stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the founder of Chili's Grill and Bar, Larry Levine. So you know an inspiration. I'm a chili head. I grew up bartending for Larry. And I tell you, all my cultural stuff, I just want to point out, 50 years later, Chili's is having its best year ever, by the way, best run ever, and talking about, what brands do. And in fact, I just did some Google searching. The last 5 years, on a trailing 12 basis from an earnings standpoint, this is for all those finance folks, for Taylor and Savory, investing in our space is always a great place. It's hard, but there's a great way to make money. But Chili's, after 50 years, have grown their earnings in the past 5 years by 11 times, like 1,000%. Big deal. Let's give it up for that. Because now Texas Roadhouse, again, 50 years, Texas Roadhouse, over a 30-year brand, doing it about 700% over 7 times. And Google grew it 4 times. So this is why this industry is great. Restaurant industry. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the panel because they have a lot to share. But Kaleb, I'm going to start with you. Just go around and just tell a little bit more about your brand, how you got there, and talk about casual dining. Is it here to stay? What's making it hot? And what are some of the things you think are most primary to the transformation?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Barry. First, I just want to say thanks for having me on the panel. I'm super honored to be on a panel with icons in our industry. So when they said, you're going to be on this panel, I'm like, are you sure? I think you have the wrong Kaleb, but I'm happy to be here. So Hawkers is an Asian street food concept. It's founded by myself, and I've got 2 of my co-founders here, Alan and Wayne, a third co-founder, Ken, who's no longer with us, sadly, but we do it for him. And really, it was 4 buddies that had an idea. We all grew up together. We all grew up traveling to Asia together. We grew up going to the hawker stalls in Asia. So if you're familiar with that term, it's basically a street vendor in Asia. And it's the best foods in Asia are out of these street hawker stalls. And so we would go travel to Asia. I was really fortunate to travel with their families at a pretty young age and have some cultural influence and eat some amazing foods and amazing flavors. And every time we would come back to the States, we'd be like, why isn't somebody taking these really robust flavors? Not just the flavors, but the hawker culture is sort of a subculture all its own. It's a whole experience, right? The sights, the sounds. why isn't someone taking that and putting it into a casual dining setting, right? A full service setting, an experiential dining setting, maybe is a better way to say it.
Right.
And so yeah, we're at restaurant 15 right now. We're just getting going, and we're very fortunate to partner with Savory in the last year, and excited about the next few years of growth. As far as, and I know this, I feel like we're going to go over on time already.
It's okay. Take our time.
As far as casual dining, I think, my gut reaction to that question is maybe it's time that we challenge the segmentation of our industry. I think for a long time we've sort of looked at this really finite segmentation, right? Like you're either QSR or you're full service or you're fast casual, right? And I think that it's more of I'm feeling like our consumer is leaning into using restaurants for a broader multitude of occasions. And what I mean by that is they're going for a snack at 4:00. They're going for a full night out with their spouse. They're going for a party on Sunday morning for brunch. They're doing, right, all these different occasions. And so I almost think it's unfair to try to like pinpoint, oh, well, you're in this category, when really to me it's more of a spectrum of, right, and where are you on that scale of service model? My point being, I laughed when I read a few years ago, like casual dining's dead or casual dining is dying. Like I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like everybody is forever. People are innately a bit lazy at times, if I may. I know I am. And everybody wants to be served. They want somebody to bring them a hot plate of food. They want someone to do their dishes for them. They want someone to bring a fork when they drop one on the floor. I have a 7-year-old and I have him do that at home. So I'm like, can you guys grab Dad a fork? Because I don't want to get up, right?
I love it.
So anyways, I think casual dining is absolutely here to stay. I think it's in a renaissance, you said. I love that term. I think we're redefining it. I think a lot of it is driven by the generation shift that's happening.
Right.
We're in kind of a pivotal moment of Gen Z taking some market for us. And I think it's an exciting time to be in this part of the industry.
That is true. You hit some good points we're going to come back to, especially around innovation, around the opportunity for how the consumer's shifting. I think that's a great segue into that. So,
Hi, I'm Christine, and this is an amazing conference. My first time here. Really, really excited to be here. And I'm the president and COO of FB Society, and we're an incubator of sorts. We actually have 8 different brands in our portfolio, 41 restaurants. We're proud Texans. We're based in Texas, and all of our brands have actually started in Texas. And some of the brands we've grown outside of Texas, but we're in what we call polished casual. I am full force, powerful, passionate around casual dining. I think it's a great time for our industry. Before I was with FB Society, I actually was the founder of a hotel management company where we created independent hotels, had them across the country, 14 different hotels, 35 different restaurant concepts. And I grew from a career starting with Hillstone early on and then straddled across independent restaurants and hotels. I think that the guest today is steering away from fine dining. If there was a segment of our industry, hotels, we spend a lot of time on segmentation and how do we target individual guests. And I think that's what we have the ability to do right now is how do we understand how the guests use us in different ways. And I think that the guest is going away from fine dining, but they want very high quality ingredients and they want amazing service and a very approachable, fun vibe that they can feel that they can celebrate or they can go on a date or just with their family. And I think today more people are sharing on social media, obviously, and they want to be seen in these spaces. And so I think it's helping us to really drive what is possible in the casual dining space. And I'm super stoked about it. I think it's a great part of our industry.
I think so. One thing, just to name the brands that you're working with, because I go back to these were a lot of founders in the room. So this is like founding a concept over and over again. So this idea of incubator sounds easy, really hard, but just walk through the brands real quick.
Okay, yeah. Our founders, Randy DeWitt and Jack Gibbons. Jack is still the CEO of our organization, and he's an amazing visionary. I think on the panel earlier, they said you have to be crazy to be in this industry. Very true. But even crazier to constantly want to create new brands that can hit different needs in the markets. And so we have 60 Vines. which is in multiple states. We have Whiskey Cake, 14 locations, Mexican Sugar, 7 locations. We're expanding that brand right now in the state of Texas. We have Son of a Butcher, which is our most closest to a fast casual concept. We have 2 enormous food halls, one in Nashville, one in Dallas, and opening in New York City, actually, and very quickly here coming upon us. And then we have Haywire, which is averages about $18 million a year. It's a multi-story, very Texas regional food concept. A lot of private dining is associated with that. Again, to celebrate and have people come in and gather together. And I think I hit all of them.
Well, you also started Velvet Taco, which Clay will be up here later too.
Yeah.
So Clay has expanded. So great story there too.
Yeah, that's right. They started Velvet Taco in Twin Peaks and then sold them off. And Clay is the CEO of Velvet Taco today. So I did forget Ida Claire right by your office there. So yes, that's our brands.
Jeff.
Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Jeff Chandler, Hopdoddy Burger Bar out of Austin, Texas. So another proud Texan, and happy to be here. And if you're familiar with Hopdoddy, you know that I'm probably the oddball out of the group. We are not technically casual dining. To Caleb's point, I think it is a spectrum, okay? And at Hopdoddy, we are just under 50 units. We're kind of throughout the South. We are true fast casual in that you order at the counter, and then it's full hospitality from there. So I think that the interesting play is I see casual dining very relevant and very alive. I think it's a great segment to be in. I think people are yearning for hospitality. They're yearning for human connections, and they want an experience. And I think we live in a society that's fast-paced. It's everything's on the go. There's a lot of convenience options and that are very compelling, and there's a time and a place for that. Again, but Caleb, to another point you made, the dining opportunities have expanded within casual dining, right? Depending upon your menu and your day parts and what you serve, there's a lot of opportunities to fill that void. And at Hopdoddy, one of the things we're obsessed with is, how do we create a craveable burger dining experience during multiple parts of the day, through our menu and through our hospitality. And it really is, in my opinion, it's about the people and the human connection, right? The connection that your team members make with our guests. We have a saying that the guest experience will never exceed the team experience. And so, whether you're QSR, fast casual, casual dining, polished casual, I really believe it's all about that human connection that we make and that our team members make with the guests that can make you feel casual dining-esque, right? I don't think it really depends on where you place your order, but it's about the hospitality that you receive during your time there. Did people know you? Do they care about you? Do they service you? Do they anticipate your needs? And whether you order at a kiosk or a counter or at the table, we kind of really think that it really doesn't matter, right? So we really are striving to provide a casual dining experience in a fast casual format because we think there's something compelling there with that hospitality and that human connection.
Jeff, I love that because you guys do straddle, which is unique. Fast casual is growing, taking space, but you guys have a different element to it. I think with the bar, the boozy shakes, and the different occasions, I think you guys have an interesting play on that. And I see it and experience as a customer. So
yeah, thank you. Look, I think it's all about it being experiential.
That's right.
We talked about it a little bit today, but what is it about your brand and your concept that you can do that really focuses on being experiential, right? Providing that we call it 5 touches, right, within hospitality that we can do to make it feel like it is experiential, right? And this whole equation, and I'm sure we might talk about this with value, I think we all know the basic value equation is, value equals the experience divided by the price. Yep. Right. And so when a lot of people are talking about managing price and affordability and bundle deals, and there's a play for that, right? We happen to think that really it's in our ballpark to focus on the experiential part, right? So we do have, full service at our bars, full bar with liquor, beer, and wine. It's very intentional to create kind of that aura of hospitality.
Yep. That's great. Well, listen, that kind of leads into, let's pick up from there because for this audience, I always think, when visiting with some of you I think we all agree people really culture. I think we've heard it on the other panels, the founders panel. So let's expand on that idea of your positioning. And then, you guys are scaling. You're at 15. You've got 40. How many restaurants you have now?
Just under 50.
Just under 50. So we have 84 in America, and the biggest thing we focus on is culture, scaling culture. So pick up on that, on how do you take your ideas and expand on how do you think about scaling your idea and culture to give that experience, because that's the biggest challenge. And then we'll go into innovation, because I think it's both lead in. If you lead your culture, then how do you continue to adapt to the consumer changing needs? So
I think I'm fanatical about culture. I think you're either building the business or diluting the business every single day that you show up. And we talk a lot about that within our teams. And someone asked before, what keeps you up at night and what excites you? It's people and people.
Yep.
It's you know. And I think the cultures within our brands, we hire very differently for Mexican sugar than we do for a whiskey cake.
Yep.
And so we just put a lot of time and effort into training. We use One Huddle, which is a really sophisticated software for us, but it's casual enough for, I think, our team members to really relate to it. And it's highly optimized within our company. So that training piece of it helps us that when we go in as an executive team, we are talking about leadership, culture, respect, fun. We talk a lot about fun. I want people to have fun in our restaurants, and I want our team members to have something silly happening behind the scenes, so that they do show up really strong for the guests. But the training piece of it is really foundational for us to create a very strong culture, because then they really are well educated. They can be themselves. Then they can really be hospitalians, very at the forefront, whether it's at a cashier, it's at a bar, or they're themselves, because they're so well trained.
Well, I love just pick up on that, because I love both the dichotomy of good and bad, around people. But I think scaling culture, getting specific, you mentioned One Huddle. Again, how do you do that in leveraging technology? We've got AI coming, so One Huddle, it's gamification, but relating to your audience. So just pick up on that a little bit, and then if you just expand on that, how you guys are doing it, because I think that's the learn how is today. And then as you expand, how do you keep the soul of a brand while you replicate hiring new people? And by the way, Christine, several concepts, different cultures, which is unique. But
yeah, it's leaning into our brand. We call it our DNA. Each one of our brands has a differentiator, nuance, and attitude. It's 7 DNA points, and I'm a passionate brand. Like, I believe words really matter. So when we're creating One Huddle, we have to always tie it back to, are we utilizing the DNA points? Are we pulling through those quirky moments of each one of the DNAs? And it is a gamification app, but it's always our executive chef is required to complete it as much as our hostess at the front door. So that helps to bring it together. And I think that the unique, one of the things Andrew asked us when we were talking about this is, what's kind of your cheat sheet that you would recommend for smaller restaurant groups? And what I would say is that One Huddle allows me to have enormous insight of data. And data. We just make a ton of decisions at our company by data. But if I was very young, and I think back to my career, I would have been better at creating just a basic Excel spreadsheet around these types of things. And so I think training and culture can just be simple documents. You don't have to be as sophisticated as a robust software. Yep. When you're early on, you have to understand when to pull those triggers. And if you can get your mind around data, decision-making, it's really helpful in the culture building.
Yeah, I would tack onto that we, for a smaller brand, we were very tech heavy. We had a great tech stack. We invested a lot in the infrastructure early on. Kind of the thought process is, well, we're not a legacy brand, so we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can kind of build it from the ground up, right?
Good point.
Which was an advantage for us. But what we found is, what's been interesting is over the last, and when we started about 15 years ago, so this took some time. But what we found is that the more we tried to automate everything, and it ended up being trying to automate leadership, is kind of right. What inherently what happened, even though I'm embarrassed to say that. What we found is that we ended up sort of automating the intuition right out of our management team.
Good,
and so I think there's like this delicate balance of like, I think One Huddle sounds awesome. It sounds like something we should be looking at, but On the other hand, I don't want to flip so hard into data and AI and automation that we lose the soul of what leadership really is, which is people, right? And we're in the people business, as we know. So anyways, all that to say, we view culture and brand as sort of mirroring each other. And so culture is kind of your internal brand, and it has to mirror your experience that your guests receive from your external brand, right? So culture and brand have to be symbiotic. They have to match. If they don't, your guests will know. They will see through it so fast, right? And I think sometimes we don't give our guests enough credit. Sometimes we think like, oh, well, they won't notice that, or like, we'll squeeze that in, or we'll just change the chicken and they'll be fine, right? And they may not consciously know it, but subconsciously they're seeing every little detail. The mind is this, just amazing creation that is taking in all these millions of stimuli at the same time, and it's creating feelings. Mm-hmm. And those feelings are what drives us to say, gosh, I really want to come back to this place. I feel cool. I feel great. It makes me feel special. Or, I don't know, something was kind of off. Like, I don't know, something about that host who, by the way, is underpaid and maybe her role got automated too much or whatever, right? Yeah. Those little things add up, and before you know it, you kind of lose the soul of the culture, which in turn affects makes a difference between what your brand promises to your guests versus what you're delivering through the culture that you create in your restaurants.
Great insights here.
I think that's so great, right? Like, I think you're talking about tech, you talk about people. I think tech is a tool, right, to help enable your people to provide that culture. And I think the thing I would want to impress upon everyone is to realize that, culture is a living, breathing thing, right? It's alive, and you either nourish it and make it better, or it starves and dies and goes in a direction maybe unintended that you don't want. So if you realize that, you got to be intentional about, okay, how do I own this culture? And, we have a couple of founders. I mean, if you work in a founder-driven organization, you're a founder. I'm in a founder-driven organization. I'm not the founder, right? I'm the hired CEO. And when you come in, you inherit a culture. So if you're a founder out there, you have to think about, what is the culture that I want to create that is native to me? Like, what are the good things about, that I can be consistent with and I can own? Because if you try to sit down and brainstorm a culture that you want to create on paper, but you can't own it, man, that's I think we all know, like, that's a recipe for disaster, right? It has to be ownable. It has to come from you, your passion. I mean, to sit up here and listen to Nicole and Ox talk about, from a founder's perspective, how they keep that culture going. Yeah. It's so true, right? But then what happens when the founder steps out? What happens when you hire a president or a COO or top leadership people? Do they focus on the same things as you? And how do you know that, right? So it needs to go through, I think, a more formalized adoption of, no, this is our culture, these are our core values, this is our mission. And that exercise might seem contrived, but it's really not. It's about creating alignment so that everyone's on the same page and you can hold each other accountable. I mean, we look at it as a lens in which we make decisions, right? Does this fall in line with do right, have the hunger, own it? Like, is this the right thing for us? So be conscious of that as you're creating your culture, and make sure you along the way, you put your head up over the clouds and you say, am I nourishing this in the right way, or are we letting it shrivel and die?
Well said. I think this is foundational. Everything else we're going to talk about. You're going to say something.
I was just going to highlight one word you said, Jeff, and I think I might have gotten it from you a while back. I'm not sure, but intentionality. And that to me is like if I could sum it up into one thing that's going to keep it going, it's being intentional about it, right? Because if you don't manage it, it will manifest into something, and you may not like what it is if you're not controlling it and managing it the way you want it to be.
Great set.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. So great topic, and I'll just say this. Look, I've taken over Founder Bread Damp, same thing. So it really is a discipline about you do it. I think being intentional, discipline. But for all those who out there with 2 or 3 growing, it's one of the most important things you can do. Remember, you scale human capital first. You get into scaling who you are, and really definitive. And Kaleb, you said it. It will we all know it goes through the guest experience. But what I find myself seeing is, and I'll say this, I go around and see concepts that have been around a long time. So I think we're boxing casual dining into those that are hot and those that are not. Some are going away. And then we'll talk a little bit about what do you think are the key drivers of that. It's opposite of what you guys just spoke. So those of you 2, 3, 20 growing, it's the most important aspect. And this goes back into, I'm going to transition this to consumer. Well, you lead your culture, your tip of the spear, your people. And then you go into what your consumer wants, you adapting. So let's talk about innovation. By the way, like you said, the consumer segmentation, huge opportunity for innovation. So walk through changing consumer trends, how you're adapting, what's new that you've done that you think, by the way, what's driving check or traffic in? What are some new things you guys are seeing innovatively by paying attention and, quite frankly, leading your culture there? Because change is tough, but if your culture is adaptive in your line, they go with you where the consumer wants to be, right? If the consumer's first. But.
So is anybody from Cracker Barrel here? Just want to make sure. Because I'm about to talk bad about them. That's not true. That's not
good
true.
Lesson, by the way, it's a good lesson.
Yeah.
We all should study that. And by the way, not to be mean, we want them to be successful, but that's a great thing. So how do we get there and how do we avoid that? So that's what today's about. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think, truly, it's a pitfall that we could all fall into. So I was joking. I don't want to pick on anybody because we've all made mistakes. But I think that was a perfect example of a brand that unfortunately didn't do a great job of bringing their guest along the journey of evolution, and they just kind of tried to jump from here to here, and it was just it was like whiplash for the guests, right? And I think when you think about innovation and evolving a concept and what it takes to be a Taco Bell has been popular with 25-year-olds for 55 years or whatever. Like, it's incredible, right? I don't know, it's crazy. And if you look, I actually looked recently. They on average rebrand about every 10 years, which I didn't know. And I think that's an interesting case study for us to think about. I think it was the Swig founder who was talking about how scary it is to make change, but it's even scarier if you don't. And then the farther behind you get, the farther from where your guest wants you to be, right? That gap widens. And then it's a bigger leap to meet them where they're at versus if you just kind of take incremental steps, innovate, evolve, stay ahead of it. I'll give you a personal example is over the last 2 years, we've gone through some very wild things as a brand, just personal to our brand, right? I know the entire restaurant industry has been wild, but we had some personal things to our brand that were really wild, a wild time, and it distracted us from really connecting with our guests in the way that we normally would have. And it's been about 2 years or so. And as we're re-engaging and looking at 2026 strategic planning and thinking about what do we want to be in 2026, what do we want to accomplish, the biggest thing for us is to just maintain relevance. Because I feel like we're relevant now, but as soon as you lose that edge, as soon as you stop thinking about and you start feeling like, yeah, we're good, let's just grow some restaurants, that's when it starts to, the gap starts to widen. And before you know it, you make a Cracker Barrel size mistake.
That's great insight.
Cracker Barrel size mistake. That's going to be, sadly, a thing. I think we really try to focus right now on where do we want to be 6 months from now. It's a fast-moving industry. There's a lot happening with technology in our industry and with social media, and so we're really taking advantage of what is happening in social media and analyzing that people. They are moving faster. They're more exposed than they've ever been, and they appreciate change. So change very thoughtfully within that brand DNA is something that we're very focused on. And so we're introducing to most of our brands more experiential around shared items. So Whiskey Cake, we just launched a big shareable brunch punch program, and it's taking off. And I think it's because people want to have experiences, they want to have a bit of programming, and they want to see an evolution that is thoughtfully within the integrity of the brand. So we're introducing Mexican sugar, a lot of tequila flights and carts where people can come and gather together that don't even know each other, and they're connecting through this unique beverage experience. And so we're leaning into this shared philosophy that the global perspective on all things social media is really is about right now. And I think we're seeing a lot of success with it. And so that's kind of where we're talking about innovation. Now, again, going back to data, is it working? Mm-hmm. And setting really strong KPIs, like what does success look like for some of these, so that we can say, okay, it's about awareness, or it's to drive traffic, or to drive revenue, hopefully all of those things, but sometimes that's not the case.
Oh, it's great insight. Right?
Brunch, punch.
Don't you want to come to
Shareable
that?
brunch punch.
Yeah.
That's me.
Right?
Brunches
I know.
are coming back.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, I think that boozy brunch, hangover brunch, whatever you want to call it. Look, I think that when we take a look at innovation, we kind of start with three questions, and that is, with our guests and how we think about them. Our objectives are, show me you know me, show me you care, and show me you're committing to deliver something with excellence that's craveable. And so, kind of through that lens, we kind of take a look at innovation and, almost if, what else would a Hopdoddy guest buy from us? When, where, and why? What's the compelling offering? So, look, I challenge you all, it's okay to test certain things, but test with intentionality of, okay, let's say it works. Can you execute it? Right? Is it going to be something you can own? Or is it something that you're going to struggle to own? And I think that's where reality comes in, right? We're all chasing top line sales. We're all trying to innovate. But I also think that we're in an interesting time period right now. I think the guest has given us permission to innovate, right? In a post-pandemic world, so much has changed. A lot of your brands have changed. We've changed. And so I think it gives us license to change and try things and not take ourselves so seriously. But be intentional about it, I think, is one thing I would say. And, in that process, I think it's just being open-minded. What are you trying to do? I think a lot of us in the last, let's just say, couple of years with inflation, a lot of us have been hyper-focused on, oh my gosh, my costs are going through the roof. How do I maintain margins, without cutting corners, without raising prices? And I would say there's another component that we don't talk about enough, and that is, yes, you need to do that, right? But you also need to make your product continually more craveable and compelling to the consumer. So the challenge that we kind of put on ourselves is, yes, we need to find things that are efficient, effective, cost effective, labor effective, all of those things. But it also has to be compelling and craveable to the guest. So it's the opposite of taking the approach of we're not going to cut corners, we're not going to reduce portion sizes, we're going to buy, we're not going to buy a lower grade beef. No, those are kind of table stakes. But how do you push your teams and push yourself to think about it differently? And that is, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to create something that's more craveable and sticky with the guests. So I would just say, give yourself some license to experiment. I think the guest is open to that, especially if you're doing it in a real genuine way. And like we all know, gosh, our team members sometimes are the best testing panel, right? Yep. A team member knows, there's no fucking way that's going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen, right? Or trying to make a bartender sometime make a milkshake that's super complicated, and they're going to go, yeah, that's not going to fly. So I think there has to be some reality, and I think your team members are a really great way to approach that.
That's great insights. By the way, this leads back to kind of the challenge. We'll talk a little bit about pricing strategy, how you guys doing. I think innovation is a great way to think of it. Instead of just price, how do you maintain margin? And again, you picked up on a little bit, Jeff. I love that idea of preserving the core, who you are, and then stimulating progress through ideas. But I love how the connection back to the team. So pick up on that a little bit more around what's your pricing strategy? How are you overcoming the challenge? We've all experienced inflation, and I kind of go back to some of it's regulatory, some of it's labor, tariffs, whatever. You still got to maintain margin, and you got to move forward. And I say this, and I think for our industry, a lot of people don't realize, but I think we have to keep articulating it. The first dollar revenue is everything. That first dollar revenue in our industry, we reinvest back into labor. We don't save labor earners. If you do, you go away. And this is what you guys expect on culture, but then it's quality of product, right? Your asset, your ambiance. And I say then the rest is marketing or digital technology, forward investing. But what's left over is we open another restaurant, right? That's the cool part. That's how simple it is. But speak to that just pricing real quick, and then just tie that into what's your plans for next year. Are you planning to be up, flat, or what do you feel like the headline looks like for you in your current business? Any color on that would be helpful for the team, just so we can think about that. And then we're going to go into Q&A after that. So, before we do that, I'm going to ask you one more question. Go ahead.
I think what Jeff said about asking your team members is so critical. We have people that have been with us for 15 years, and they they will not sell that milkshake that takes them 7 freaking minutes to make. So just hook it right away, right? But it is a very, very valuable tool in our roundtables. When I'm going out there, I really listen, and I think they're generally right on with it. We're very committed to value for our guests. We have a lot of repeat business. We want to continue to grow our repeat business. And so we're very sensitive to price increases. There's a lot of noise out there. I feel like there's always been noise, though, around product. And, this year it's tariffs. Next year will be something else. It's COVID. It's labor. So not getting distracted by that noise and really being committed to our philosophy, I think has helped us. But costs are going up. And so we tend to spend a lot of time on the menu mix. So if beef is going up, then our seasonal menu change, and this really straddles across the entire portfolio, our seasonal menu change will be focused on what can we put on the menu that will take away from that volume of that steak frites. And could we put something in the seafood category or the pork category that will be really craveable, really delicious, and compete so that we don't have to increase the price of that beef product? And we do that a lot. We change our menus 3 times a year, sometimes 4, depends on the brand. But just really menu engineering is how we get away from increasing prices.
Very fundamental. Just quickly, what's your, if you say look at a CAGR, what's your history of pricing over the last, call it 5 years? You guys speak that, just high level.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of an anomaly to that. We were dramatically underpriced for a long time, and so we took the liberty post-COVID, and we took like a 25% price increase. Wow. Yeah, it was wild. Wow, and didn't see
what happened from it. Yeah.
Didn't see any impact from traffic. Everybody was fine. We just basically caught up to where we should be. So I want to be clear that I am not recommending that at all. Please understand that. That was a scary, scary moment where we're like, if we're going to do it, if we're going to make this catch up, let's just do it. And we did it incrementally over a series of a couple rollouts over a year. But
where do you see next year for you based on the foundation? You feel like you've got a good foundational price?
Yeah, I think we're kind of similar to what Christine said. I think we're going to be surgical about a few price increases, but really, I feel like we're, at least for our brand, and I guess this is very brand specific, so I can't speak to the industry or the segment, but for us, we feel like we're pretty well at the ceiling. The way we monitor it, and it's, we take data, but then the analysis is very, very much like more of a qualitative decision making. So we take all of our reviews in, we look at all the feedback, we do the analysis on what we got from guests, we do some consumer insights research at the actual restaurants with guests. And then we really take that into like kind of internally to the board, to the board table, and we say, all right, what are we feeling? Do you think we have room on this item or this item? Let's dive into the data and see what it says. I don't know. So it's very much like a qualitative and quantitative decision for us as an art and a science. And I think that's when you get the best outcomes. I think it's easy to look at data and say, well, this isn't selling, so I guess we overpriced it, or, we got 40 reviews, so maybe we should throw it out. But, I think when you can, and I heard Jeff kind of comment on this too, but I think dynamic leadership is when you have the ability to analyze things through a qualitative and a quantitative lens at the same time, right? So looking at like what's the people, what's the human insights here, and then what's the data telling us, and where's the Venn diagram telling us is the magic in the middle. Gotcha. Anyways, I think we'll be up next year, not dramatically, but I think next year will be. I think it's going to be better than this year.
Good. Okay.
Definitely an art and a science. I'll be real quick here. I think that, when you take a look at pricing, I just think you have to know your markets. You have to know your competitors. You've got to know the consumer in which you're serving, what their pain points are, right? We have 2 moments of truth. When people order, depending on where they order, right? If it's at the table or at the cashier and they're looking at a menu board and they're looking at prices and they're going, some people are making decisions with how much they want to spend, but most of the time they're making a decision on what's craveable and what catches their eye. The second moment of truth is when they pay the final bill and they go, wow, that was worth it. That was great. Or they say, wow, that was expensive, right? So be in tune with that. It is an art and a science. And, we took 1.2% last year, and it drives my CFO crazy, but I'm not going to predict what we're going to do next year because you know what? I don't know, right? If we go through and we take a look at the market and the macro level things and everything else, I don't know. I would rather protect top line and let margin erode. I mean, my investors might not like me here say this, but I think driving that top line sale is more important than protecting margins. And you can always look at how you're going to increase and catch up later.
That's right. Right. Now we have Q&A. Thank you. You're going to sit in the couch. Here you go.
I'm going to join you on this couch, this comfy living room setup we've got here. We probably just have time for one question. Casual dining is such a robust topic. That was a great conversation. So we've had a lot of good questions come in, and like we told you earlier, we will answer them all later. But the one let's focus on stage here, how is technology such as apps, ordering, loyalty, and social, how is that changing the guest experience?
I think it brings it to life, right? And you have to be very mindful of how you want your brand portrayed, through those different channels. I think that, the best stuff is organic. And so some of it's user-generated content. And so, this used to drive me crazy because I would see user-generated content that was crap. And I'm going to why are we posting this? Oh, we're not. It's somebody else. So I go back to our ops team. I mean, that's the challenge for us, right? And I think it's really healthy and it's good. So I think it just, again, it highlights the experiential nature and attracts people where they oftentimes are scrolling. So I think you either hide from it or you embrace it and really try to make it part of your strategy.
I think I totally agree. I think it is here to stay, and I have a really optimistic point of view on all things social media. We've got a really great team, but optimistic means that it's not just about being a cheerleader. It's about that you have a very clear path forward. And I think that you've got to be very disciplined around what type of apps do you use, how much do you embrace social media, because there's so many offerings. And Barry, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this because we've been meeting on it. And I think if you're not disciplined, then you have this dilution of not optimizing anything, and then it's very confusing for your team and for the guest. But we're embracing it in training, we're embracing it in marketing, we're embracing it in how to get back to the guest to understand their personal preferences so that we can have more repeat business is really our goal around the technology options that we're choosing.
I'm going to lean a little bit more into the negative side of this answer. I'm sorry. I think that if we're not careful, we're going to erode our guest experience. I think we have to be, you guys said this, so I just want to highlight, nobody's not saying this, but I think we have to be really careful about how and where we use technology, particularly in a full service environment, or really in any environment. Because I think there's this, I come from the generation that's digitally native. We grew up, it's just normal for me to have the extension of it's at my fingertips. It's what I do. And I'm telling you that my generation and the generation after me, they're starting to crave analog experiences.
That's right.
They are craving they're so inundated. I don't know if they're getting apps on their phone that dumb their phone down so they don't have all the clutter and all the stimuli and all that stuff. And so I think there's absolutely a place for it. I think it's super important. I think it's great for efficiency. I think it's great for brand awareness. I think all the things, right? All the positive things. But I also have to give this little disclaimer that sometimes may not get enough credit. Let's just be really careful that we don't erode the real guest experience that we want to offer.
Ditto. I agree with him wholeheartedly. That's my answer. I agree.
That was a good mic drop.
That's a good.
It was a little, on the pessimistic side, but so true. I'm with you. I've heard people say, I don't want to download another app, right? It's so true, and it's such a balance, right? So let's give a big round of applause to our casual dining panel.
Great job,
Thank
guys.
you so much. Great job, everyone.